Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, a big thank you to Russ at Count Rushgular Minis for the virtual gift voucher. Huge thank you my friend for the support, it is truly appreciated, thank you. But on to today. Today we're discussing the Ultramarines and their chapter master, the fabled Marneus Calgars, as we ask the question, just who is his most likely heir? General spoiler warning to begin, as we will be discussing events from across the lore, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so Marneus Calgars, the legendary Ultramarines chapter master, the man who led the breaching assault against the Hive fleet during the Battle of Macragge. The man who single-handedly held the gate against the Orc horde for a whole day and night during the siege of Zalathras, and the man who, through no fault of his own, is largely overshadowed by his returned Primarch. But his legend remains strong through the events of Vigilus and his very own comic series. However, the day will ultimately arrive where Marneus will finally fall in battle and a new chapter master will need to be appointed. So just who will it be? Well, let's take a look at the most likely possibilities. Number 1. The captain of the first company, Severus Agenman. Now, as captain of the first company, it's traditionally expected that Severus would assume the role of chapter master, in the eventuality that the position becomes vacant. However, this is not always the case, and there are countless examples of other company captains taking the role across the galaxy and throughout history. Severus himself was promoted to first company captain after the Battle of Macragge, and he has definitely proved deserving of the rank countless times over. So much so that when the returned Primarch appointed his new Tetrarchs to not only govern the realm of Ultramar, but to actually aid in extending its already vast borders even further, it was Severus Agenman Guilliman approved first. So this is a huge vote of confidence for the first captain, and it definitely lands him in good stead in regards to succeeding Calgars. However, being a suitable choice for Tetrarch does not necessarily mean he is suitable to become the chapter master, as the governing position of Tetrarch is quite different to that of chapter master of the Ultramarines. And it does have to be said, Severus is not without his detractors. Chief Librarian Tigurius himself believes that Severus has become mentally scarred by his previous experiences against the ruinous powers. And while Guilliman clearly may have a different opinion, the appointment of the Tetrarchs was very much his private appointment, boiling down to his judgment and his judgment alone. When it comes to appointing a new chapter master, I really don't think there can be any doubt the Chief Librarian's opinion is sure to be taken into account, and it will definitely have significant sway. Even if Tigurius may have put the past behind him, who's to say that that doubt wouldn't resurface when taking into account the traditions and lineage of the history of the Ultramarines chapter master position. Next, Cato Sicarius, the man who divides the blue fanbase like no other. People just seem to either love this character or loathe him in equal measure. But regardless, Sicarius has a destiny, and it just will not be denied. The former captain of the Second Company, who led the Ultramarines to victories such as Black Reach and the Zeist campaign, swiftly gaining the reputation as the true heir to Calgar. His bravado and brilliance in battle setting him apart from even his fellow captains. And love him or loathe him, his charisma is undeniable. And thus it was that when Guilliman returned and set course for Terra, it was Cato Sicarius he chose to accompany him. Through every step of their embattled Terran crusade, Sicarius was by the Primarch's side, right through to the launch of the Indomitus fleets. And it was here that Sicarius was lost within the warp, fighting against the constant assault of the demons within for nigh on 5 years, before eventually fighting his way home to Macragge, where he once again rejoined his Primarch and was appointed captain of his newly formed Victrix Guard. Having lived quite a tale in service to the chapter, it's safe to say Sicarius must undoubtedly bear traumatic scars himself. The horrors he witnessed and fought against during those years within the warp. And though he hasn't reclaimed his position of second company captain, he has instead been given placement again by the Primarch's side. It certainly appears Guilliman is attempting to groom Sicarius for some type of future role. Whatever that may be, only time will tell. Next up, Captain Akran. At this time, the successor to Sicarius as the second company captain. And yes, he's undoubtedly a lesser known character within the lore. And it still remains to be seen just whether or not Akran will remain second company captain going forward. But thus far he certainly has. This Primaris Marine has certainly proved his mettle since Sicarius' disappearance, and he has led the second company to impressive victories, attacking the Black Legion factories upon Nemendgast and fending off the Plague Marines of Nurgle during the Plague Wars. An outsider bet for Chapter Master at this time, but his legend could yet still grow, and it undoubtedly will. Next we have Uriel Ventris. Uriel, my first foray into the Black Library, and the recently returned legend in his latest novel The Swords of Calth. Now I'm planning on listening to the audiobook this week, and I'm certainly not ruining it by checking out spoilers. But from the synopsis itself, we know Uriel has crossed the Rubicon Primaris, and he's been engaging the Necrons as part of Guilliman's Indomitus crusade, which I'm assuming takes place after we saw Uriel bring word of Mortarian's invasion of Ultramar during the Dark Imperium series. The 4th Company Captain has had an eventful career since his appointment to lead the 4th, and that's saying the very least. We've seen him go toe-to-toe with the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer. We've seen him repel the Tyranid invasion of Tarsis Ultra, be banished from the chapter itself for breaking the Codex Astartes, only to complete his quest for redemption upon the traitor Legion homeworld of Medringard, the seat of Perturabo no less, before ultimately returning to reclaim his place as 4th Company Captain, declared completely immune from taint by the Grey Knights themselves. Uriel may not be as expected as Agamemnon or Sicarius, but he is undoubtedly deserving of the role. In all likelihood, if you know anything about Uriel, you know he wouldn't even want the role, believing others more deserving. But that may be just why Uriel could be the best choice for Chapter Master out of them all. And lastly we have Decimus Felix. Now Decimus was part of the very first batch of Belisarius Caul's Primaris creations, the first wave of new Marines released from the holds of Mars, and he swiftly proved himself a formidable leader within the Unnumbered Sons, being promoted to the rank of captain, and ultimately Guilliman's equerry. And Guilliman then proceeded further, making Felix a captain of the Ultramarines, the 11th captain, breaking his own Codex Astartes. Now if this wasn't confusing enough, Guilliman then appointed Felix again as one of his new tetrarchs. Now with all these changes to the long established Codex Astartes, it's definitely easy to be a bit confused, especially when our physical codexes don't always line up with the novels. But I do think that's something that's being addressed in this edition, by what appears to be moving most of the lore to the novels. Now whether you like that or not is up to you, but the fact is for Decimus Felix, he is clearly another Marine who most definitely has the Primarch's favour. So these to me are the most likely favourites for the role of Chapter Master should Calgar finally meet his end. I'm not sure what the status is with Calgar's physical body these days, because before he crossed the Rubicon, he was mostly already made up of bionic parts, having already lost vast portions of his physical body. Then we saw during Vigilus and his encounter with Abaddon, he once again saw his body ravaged by war, having his throat torn out, now sounding more mechanical than ever, and permanently losing his primary heart. There's only so much damage Calgar can take. I mean, he's starting to resemble more of an Iron Hand than an Ultramarine. How much more can this legend take? Who would I like to see as the next Chapter Master should it arise? Well, me personally, I like the added character Sicarius brings to the Ultramarines, a brash commander who doesn't take no messing around. I would definitely love to see him meeting other strong reputations within the lore, such as a Ragnar Blackmane for example. A Genman to me is just a bit too bland. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not exactly exciting either. You never get that feeling that business has picked up when you read his name. But Sicarius, however, you undoubtedly do. Now, aside from him, I wouldn't mind seeing Uriel Ventris getting the nod. And yes, of course, I do have a certain bit of sentimentality when thinking of his character. It would just be a nice culmination to his journey, and while he may not be quite as inspiring as Sicarius, he does represent perhaps a more stable choice. Now, as for a new important character such as Decimus Felix, I really think these tetrarchs should just form new chapters, because it's all getting a bit too confusing. The Ultramarines chapter organisation is really a bit up in the air. Yes, he's a tetrarch, but he's also the 11th captain of the Ultramarines chapter. But there doesn't appear to be an 11th company to go with him. We just need a little bit more explanation, and his character needs a little bit more development and history before he can even contemplate replacing a character such as Calgar. But as always guys, what do you think? Now obviously none of us ever want to see Calgar going away, but in the theory that it was to happen, who would you want to see be the new chapter master? Are you a fan of Sicarius? Or do you lean towards Ventris? Or perhaps you wish to stick with tradition and vote for Captain Agamemnon? Or are you going to side with one of the new choices, such as Felix? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.